Hi guys, so it's me here at my house. I felt today it's raining, it's cold, it's gloomy. I don't really feel like getting outside just yet. So I thought it would be a good time to start a discussion. Basically, it's just gonna be me by myself. Sometimes I'll bring in other people, but just talking about things that interest me, have an effect on me. Not like life or death effect on me, but just like I feel like resonate with me personally in a way. I'm not gonna talk about politics. I hate politics. I'm not gonna get into any religious debates. It's purely my opinion, and I know that my opinion differs from a bunch of other people. But that's what the internet is, and that's what the internet's for, is for voicing your opinion on things and, starting a discussion, which is what I want to do. So let's get right down to it. So what I want to talk about, or discuss with you a little bit, get my camera kind of good. What I want to start out talking about is a subject that I, am fairly passionate about. That's superheroes. I want to talk about superhero fatigue. We are getting bombarded with superhero properties. And to some, this is the golden age. Just like the comics had their golden age where everything you read was just so was amazing, and it was, you saw all your heroes and they were doing the things that you wanted them to do, and they all were in really good stories. We're in that age. We're in that age of superhero cinema where we're getting 4 or 5 of these big superhero films every year. And it kind of occurred to me today that the reason that superhero fatigue has become an issue, or the reason that people have started to think about superhero fatigue, is when one of these films does poorly. Just because a film doesn't live up to expectations, or a film doesn't perform the way that a studio wants it to, or a studio thinks it should, doesn't mean that we should automatically assume that people are getting tired of seeing superheroes. I'm not saying superhero fatigue doesn't exist, but I'm saying for the majority of the population, look at what Batman v Superman raked in, and that didn't fare well with fans or critics, but still made a butt ton of money because people wanted to see Batman and Superman on screen for the first time. But then you hear people talk about, well, the reason that people aren't saying it's good is because we've got so many of these superhero movies and people are getting tired of seeing the superhero movies all the time, and that's all we get, and yada yada yada. I guarantee you, when Captain America comes out in a week, that's already getting stellar reviews and amazing critical acclaim, and I guarantee that it's going to touch on a lot of the same subjects that Batman v Superman did, and I guarantee it's probably going to go roughly about the same way Batman v Superman did. And the reason that people are going to say, oh, well, superhero fatigue is just a myth and blah, 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 is because the movie's going to do well, and the movie is already doing well with fans and critics that have already seen it. You had the same problem with Green Lantern in 2010 or 2011. You had a character you were trying to get off the ground, and the movie wasn't received very well, and a lot of people pointed to the fact that we had Chris Nolan's Batman series, we had the Iron Man franchise was going, the Avengers franchise was it was a year before Avengers came out. It came out a year before Avengers came out. And you're like, well, we've been getting so many of these superhero movies lately that one of them was bound to get flack because everybody's just tired of seeing superheroes. Not true. The reason that movie got flack is because it's a terrible movie. The whole idea of superhero fatigue is that people are getting tired of seeing superheroes, superheroic characters with extraordinary abilities on film. They're tired of seeing them in the format that you are normally present superhero movies in. The idea that people are worried or are feeling fatigued with these movies is just based on the type of movies that we're getting and the type of movies that do well. Batman v Superman did not do well with critics. I'm not saying it didn't do well financially, because it did. It made almost $1 billion. But it wasn't received well by fans and critics, and that's why people are like, some people, and I've heard people be like, Captain America's coming out soon, just after Batman v Superman, and oh my god, X-Men comes out the same month Captain America does. We're getting all these movies kind of together, and it's just like, oh my god. The only reason that's a problem, the only reason that's a fear, is because one of them didn't do so well. And the minute that the next one does amazing, you're gonna be like, oh my god, this is, I'm rejuvenated. This is amazing. I can't believe I had my doubts. I think it's kind of a testament to how, I'm calling Marvel out here. They're not paying me. I think it's a testament to how Marvel does their movies. They almost had that problem in the early goings of the cinematic universe. They were doing their origin stories for their heroes. Iron Man was great. Iron Man 2 was sort of a, they were doing their introductions, and the introductions are always the hardest thing to do because they have to follow kind of the same tropes. Iron Man 2 didn't introduce, wasn't reintroducing us to Iron Man, but it was giving us War Machine and Black Widow and more Nick Fury and blah 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 blah, and then setting up this whole larger Avengers universe. Thor, was almost like a coming of age story that most like superhero movies kind of do, because they're coming into that role of protector hero. Captain America, same thing, he's coming into that role, but it's the standard origin, standard evolution of a hero. And then we get Avengers, and they're like, all right, that's awesome. Now we kind of gotta reevaluate how we do these movies, because we have a slate of movies up until the next Avengers film, at least, and we have to try and make sure that these characters stay fresh, because we're not introducing any new ones like on their own. We're going to introduce them through these movies, through others' movies. And so the discussion of superhero fatigue after Avengers kind of stopped, because you got movies that were received well by fans and critics. Iron Man 3, well received by critics. Fans kind of iffy, but it still fared really well. Thor: The Dark World was received better than Thor was, I think, by critics and fans. It wasn't necessarily the best, but it was still better. Winter Soldier blew people away. Critics, box office, both. Was fantastic. It was amazing. And then you got Guardians of the Galaxy, which was an origin story, but it was the origin of a team. It wasn't the origin of how all these people came to be who they are. It's just like it was getting these people together in a roster, and you didn't have to sit and take time with Star-Lord, Gamora, Drax, Groot, Rocket, and like explain each of their backstories. Kind of did a little bit in the movie, but not enough to be like, ugh. No, the reason that worked was because you already had your characters there. You didn't have to try to get them to be their character. You didn't have to try to get them to be the characters where you knew them or how you had known them before. I think it also worked well because Guardians was a property that nobody really cared about. Nobody really had an investment in. And now everybody does. Everybody loves Guardians of the Galaxy. I do. I'd never heard of it until the movie. Now I'm in love with the Guardians. And then you got Age of Ultron. And I know I'm speaking strictly about Marvel for a second, but hear me out. I got Age of Ultron, and that was the ensemble team movie. They're already a team. They've already got their niche in place. And the thing that you do with team movies, if they're sequel team movies, is if you get the team together in the first movie, that's awesome. You gotta try to contrive a way for there to be conflict within the team, which could tear them apart, but at the end they all decide to either stay together or, to go their separate ways. And Age of Ultron did exactly that. It followed kind of standard superhero tropes. And Joss Whedon has come out and said that he's disappointed that that's kind of how the movie went. It's not a bad movie. I love Age of Ultron. But it does follow that kind of those points. And people started talking about superhero fatigue then because they were like, well, we've kind of seen all this stuff before. Then you had Ant-Man, which was another origin story. And it's kind of done differently, but it was still just an origin story, and people harkened it back to the first Iron Man movie. But still, the conversation of superhero fatigue started up again because Ant-Man wasn't the Avengers. It didn't do what people thought the Avengers did. but that's because it was an origin story. And we've seen origin stories a million times. We know how superheroes come to be who they are. No matter how you spin it, it's always going to kind of pan out the same way. Man of Steel comes out and does the origin story for Superman. And Man of Steel has its faults. I love Man of Steel. And it's great. And people, it makes money, divides fans. It's still kind of the standard origin story tropes. And then you get Batman v Superman, and you don't have an origin story anymore. You have two characters that are firmly established, and Batman has been around for decades, and you've seen him 7 billion times on the screen, so they don't feel like they have to go back and tell you his origin story, even though they do. You've got this movie that has a lot of the same faults that Iron Man 2 had, and is trying to build this universe fairly quickly, and the story suffers. And when your story suffers, then your movie's going to suffer. And when your movie suffers, people are going to assume that it's because they're getting tired of seeing superheroes. People are getting tired of seeing superheroes. That's not the case. If your story is good, then your movie is going to be good. It should be good. If it's not, and you have a great story, there's something wrong. But anyway, if your movie's good, if your story's good, then your movie's going to be good, which means the fans are going to be pleased with it, and the fans are going to want to see more, and they're going to crave more, and they're going to want more and more and more and more and more. If the story kind of falls in places, the movie's going to suffer slightly, and fans are going to immediately go, I don't know if I want any more of that. I could hold off. I can wait. I can wait for another superhero movie. I can wait for another Batman movie. I can wait for another Superman movie. Superman movie. I can wait for more superheroes. So that's the thing. That's kind of explaining superhero fatigue the way I see it. And I'm sure that there are just people out there that are like, yeah, I'm kind of just tired of seeing guys in colorful costumes dominating our movie screens. I want to get back to where it was, people had original ideas and blah, 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 blah. I mean, I'm not getting tired of the superhero wagon right now. I'm ecstatic. I'm living in a world where I can look forward to every month another movie milestone coming out. February was Deadpool. Deadpool's already out on DVD now. I can watch it whenever I want. And then March was Batman v Superman. Don't really have much for April. May, Captain America and X-Men. And then July or August is Suicide Squad. And then November is Doctor Strange. Look at how many of these movies we're getting this year. And I'm going to tell you, they're not all going to be spectacular. You got to assume that at least 2 of those movies are going to kind of fail you. And I don't want to say that Suicide Squad's going to be the one that's like, because it's in the same universe that Batman v Superman is. And I don't want to think that Doctor Strange is going to end up not being good. But I could see it kind of being a by-the-books kind of thing because it's another superhero origin story. And we've seen that. So that's my thoughts on superhero fatigue, and let's get the discussion going. Tell me what you think about superhero fatigue, if it affects you, what you think can be done to remedy superhero fatigue, what you think can be done to just kind of make sure that these movies don't end up disappointing people. And give me a topic that you want to listen to me ramble about or discuss in the comments below. Let me know what you think. Let me know what you want to hear me ramble about next time. And I hope to see you guys again soon. This is Jordan.